Hi, this is Dr. Taheri. Today I would like to give you a lecture on project management in general and specifically Gantt chart and how we develop the Gantt chart, what is the use and significance of Gantt chart. This lecture would be an interest of my first year APSci 170 engineering fundamentals students as well as our fourth year capstone design students at UBC Okanagan. Let us start by talking about a project management. Now, how many phases are involved in project management? Generally speaking, there are 5 phases we have to consider. Number 1 is we have to understand or evaluate the scope of the project. What is the magnitude of this project? What are the objectives? What are the deliverables? What are the resources? The next step, which is what we talk today and is very important, it's called developing a plan. We have to develop a roadmap of how we can accomplish our deliverables, how we go from point A to point Z. And of course, we have to launch the plan. Just having it on paper does not makes it to happen, so we would like to execute this planning. Well, of course, we have to monitor and control this planning, see how we follow the plan, what are the obstacles, if there are any barriers. This is the important part. The next step is we have to finally close up the project, which is the final. We have to finish the project. Now, I would like to talk more about, as I mentioned, the planning. So the planning involved in 5 subcategories. Number 1, it's called identifying the project tasks. So what are the tasks in the project? The definition of task is an individual activity that it has a goal itself. The goal is within the goal of the project. So this activity should have a beginning, should have an end. This activity should have a duration. Activity should have some people involved on it. So this is what we call it as a task. The first step is we have to break down our project to several mini projects or tasks. And the technical term for this part is called WBS, work breakdown structures. So as I mentioned, the next step would be you have to identify the duration of each task. You have to define what are the resources required for the task. Then of course we have to develop something that's called the structure analysis project network. We will talk about it when it comes to the topic of PERT chart. And finally, of course, after all, we would have a project proposal, and we have a roadmap, which is right in this stage. If you perhaps you are a contractor, then this would be your business plan or how you want to pursue it. Now, thinking about WBS. So a WBS is a functional decomposition of a system. The decomposition of my project, breaking it down to as much as detail as is required. And of course, depends on the complexity. Sometimes a task itself has several other mini tasks or subtasks. So we have to go as detailed as possible. Sometimes the task is very simple, so just paint the wall. So there are not many subcategory involved in it. But either way, we have to write enough details that it becomes clear. Now, one of the most important part in defining the task is you have to create a logical dependency between these tasks. These tasks are not independent from each other. They are related. There are, generally speaking, 4 possible relationships between these tasks. Number 1, which is the most logical relation, is start to finish. That means one task cannot start unless another task is finished. To give you an example, if you are constructing a building, first you have to finish the foundation, and then you have to build the wall as well as the roof and other components. So without foundation, you cannot start building the walls. The next one is start to start, and it means that two tasks, they have to start at the same time. To give you a tangible example, for example, pouring concrete for foundation and leveling the concrete, these two tasks should be done at the same time. There is no sense in you pour the concrete and after a week or so you come and level it, because by then everything is dry out and you can actually level the poured concrete. The next logical relation is finish to finish. It means regardless of these two tasks, when they start, they have to finish at the same time. Having said that, logically you have to start. The longer the task, which takes longer time with a longer duration, earlier in order to finish both at the same time. Sometimes when you want to finish the building and you have next task as an inspection, you prefer plumbing and wiring to be done at the same time. So in that case, if you think wiring is going to take a longer time, then you have to start wiring earlier. So one crew are working on wiring, the other crew working on plumbing, and these two crew, they have to start a different time, but they finish at the same time in order to avoid any delay in the next stage, which is inspection. And finally, last but not least, is start to finish, which means the second task cannot be finished until the first task is started. Or in a sense, one task cannot be finished until another task is started. And to give you an example is if you are building again, let's say a residential apartment complex, condominium complex, it's very logical before you finish the entire task of building the project, so you start to pre-sell these condominiums to create some cash flow. So for one task cannot be finished until another task has been already started. So this is the actual logical relation that we have. So we can see this is first one is finish to start. So this task cannot start unless the first one is finished. Start to start, both should start at the same time. Finish to finish, both they should finish at the same time. As you can see, this task, because this longer, should start earlier. And finally, start to finish means task B cannot finish until task A is being started. So this basically are for possible dependency. Now, of course, one of the best way to create this roadmap and dependency is called Gantt chart, and it's coming after the person who invented. His name was Henry Lawrence Gantt. Is the father of Gantt chart. So what basically we have, Gantt chart is simply a timeline with the tasks that can be connected to each others. So we can simply do that in Excel, in project Microsoft Project Management, or Microsoft Project Manager. So I have also found out there is another software which is freely available. We talk about it in our next lecture as a series of 3 lectures. We talk about project management. So this is actually simply a step-by-step instruction how to build a Gantt chart. So you can see the first step is you list all the tasks that are here. So obviously when you list them, they're all start at the same date, then all have one day, just start. The next step is, of course, you define the duration of each task, as you can see here. And then, of course, you create the dependency between these tasks. And by doing that, you start to get to the final stage, which would be finding the critical path. Now, for example, you can see task 1 is related to task 2, and as you can see, this task 2 cannot be started until the task 1 is finished, so as we have task 3 related to task 2. Now here, task 7, you can see here, this task, of course, it has related to 2 different tasks. So task 7, which is painting, has to be done after both electrical and the plumbing is installed. So we have 2 restriction here. Usually they call the last task as a zero deviation because it's a milestone. Now, as I mentioned, the next step is to defining the critical path, and by definition, critical path is the longest path that it takes for the project to be finished. So in this case, these are the red ones. So as you can see, these 2 tasks, which is installing plumbing and landscaping, these 2 are not in critical path. So having said that, it means that these 2 tasks both can be delayed, maybe for a day and a half in this case, without affecting the outcome. And as you can see here, the entire project takes about 10.5 days, and the critical path is task 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7, not task 6 and 8. And this is the minimum required time to finish it. So you mentioned that these 2 are not a part of the critical path. And what do you call them? We call them these tasks. They can be slack or they can be float. It means that we have more actually freedom to accomplish these tasks. And in this particular case, both these they have 1.5 day of float. So this is very handy, because if somehow you feel that you are short in another task, and you understand that these 2 tasks are a floating task, maybe you can take some of the resources allocated to these 2 tasks for other ones, that it causes 1.5 delay in these 2 tasks without causing any problem for the entire the project timeline. And of course, remember that the tasks that are in critical path, they don't have any slack. They have to be bang on done at the time that has been defined. Otherwise, the project is going to be late. And just if you want to ask yourself if there is any task in the red, someone asks what is the slack time in this task, the answer is 0. There is no slack time, or these are not floating tasks. Of course, this is a very important chart. I strongly suggest and recommend you to, whenever you want to work on a project in the stage of managing the project, use this chart. But of course, there is another chart which should be in parallel with the Gantt chart to be used, and that's called PERT chart, which stands for Program Evaluation and Review Techniques, which we can talk about in another time. Thank you very much, and I hope this will become useful.